All right, welcome back to Problem Solver Politics. I am your host, Cardin Ellis, with Cody the Oracle.
Hey, everybody.
And we're going to ask a legitimate question right now. Can or is Joe Biden going to make it? Just plain old physically make it.
Or mentally.
Or mentally. Make it to Election Day. Cody, tell us what's going on.
All right. Well, I guess with Bernie Sanders dropping out yesterday, it would leave the path to the nominee seemingly wide open for Joe Biden. Now, Joe Biden, who probably was going to be the nominee for the Democrats anyway. Now, this morning, I believe it was this morning, the New York Post, which is a more right-leaning conservative magazine and is known for doing these kind of back pages, posted that. This was funny, though. They said, "Someone wake Joe and tell him he's the nominee." With a picture of Joe Biden sleeping. But the reason why I wanted to bring into this is because it's something that anyone who's been following this campaign at all for any level, just my campaign, the 2020 primary, will notice that there's been a lot of talk around Joe Biden and his, let's say, mental capabilities. Let's see. And this is something that I will maybe bipartisan is the wrong word for it.
Well,
you have the people at New York Post, you have people in New York Post, people at Breitbart, and you even got the communists at Jacobin saying the same thing, that Joe Biden is not all there mentally. Running him for president is incredibly dangerous. Now, the reason I want to bring up these two things to highlight, there's a lot
Can I pause you for 1 second and just point out one other thing too, is that Joe Biden himself has said this. We talked about this quote about 2 weeks ago where he said, I'm really looking into who my VP is because, you never know in that first term what could happen, making it an absolute allusion to his death or his necessary medical retirement. And he's literally said, I'm really looking into who my VP is because, you never know what happens to the president. And that's he himself doubting his own ability. So yes, continue. I'm sorry. It's not just others. It's not from without. It's coming from within his own camp, from within his own head. He's wondering if he can even make it. I'm done.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I was eventually going to get to that, but
okay.
So yeah, I guess we don't talk about that anymore, but it's just something that has been coming on again and again. This idea that is Joe Biden really, it doesn't feel real to me that Joe Biden's the nominee. Now, where he'd be officially coronated and crowned as the nominee of the Democrats would generally be speaking at their national convention in Milwaukee. Now, here's the thing. That convention has now been pushed back all the way to mid-August. So this is one thing we were talking. Now, I guess to work back through the kind of the premise here, I honestly do not think Joe Biden will be on that ballot in November. All those people fretting, about having to plug their nose and vote for Biden, I don't think you'll have to. Now, I have to admit, this throws a big wrench in that. Here's the thing. If they were to replace Joe Biden at a convention, we are talking about mid-August. So we're talking about, I think, 9, 10, 11 weeks to Election Day. Probably a little bit shorter. Not even 3 full months, I don't think. So that's a ripple. And I don't see, I have to admit, I do believe this is just what I'm thinking, speculation. I feel like Joe Biden really was running to clear out the field. And now that they finally got Bernie Sanders out of the way, I think the Democrats are going to try to find a new candidate. I don't think they want to run with Joe Biden.
Okay.
Now, honestly, like I said, I showed you the Jacobin headline, obviously more leading towards Bernie Sanders, who dropped out. They're not Biden supporters. But being those, there is some across the aisle. There's people looking at Joe Biden of all stripes going, really? Is this the guy, Joe Biden? I mean, I was trying to find it. I couldn't find the thing. But some of the answers he's been giving during his remote town halls have been just bizarre. Almost just fractured thoughts that didn't really connect to anything. But I don't see how they could also swap him out now. So here's the thing. If the Democrats wanted to do it, I don't think they'd push back the convention. Now, Biden is called for a virtual convention. But something else I want to get to is it is not completely without precedent to actually have a change at the convention. Now, this is a very, very, very interesting story, but I definitely thought it was something worth talking about. Now, we're going to be talking about the incredibly cursed campaign of one George McGovern.
Yeah.
But get this. In 1972, a senator named Thomas Eagleston from Missouri, who was George McGovern's running mate, bowed out after the convention. So again, after the convention. Yeah. But due to revelations that he had undergone electroshock therapy. Yeah. Crazy story. I'll post a link. It's an insane story. But this has happened before. And again, it's not like he got ran over by a car or something. They found out, dude, maybe. Now, he did go on to serve as a senator for, I believe, a while after this. But still, there was questions about the mental faculties of a guy who had electroshock therapy, but being a VP, and he was replaced. Again,
also back
VP,
then,
not president. But it's not something wholly without. Tell you what, there's more recent precedent for mental issues having someone on the ticket be replaced after convention than there is for the contested convention we were all preparing for.
Yeah.
That happened last time like 100 years ago. This happened in the 70s when George McGovern got smoked. So maybe, do you think it hurt him in the general when he had to replace his VP because his former had an electroshock? You think in 1972 they had an enlightened stance on electroshock therapy? But
George McGovern hurt himself. I mean,
but just
yeah.
the point there. But again, that's what I wanted to get to. I wanted to kind of lay out some of that stuff. And as you mentioned, that Joe Biden himself has openly floated the idea. I think the exact quote is, "I need someone ready on day one because, like, you never know." Wow, Joey. You know what's funny? Most people, like, I wouldn't say, you never know. You got to be prepared for what happens next. But here's the next thing. We're moving on to the latest thing that happened. And that has been, now Joe Biden has been accused of sexual assault. Accused, you can incredibly accused of, but it's not being taken seriously by the media. And what that's doing, it's something the media should have learned a bit with Trump in 2016. If you ignore something people legitimately care about, they will just resent you and then Joe Biden for it. If people felt like these allegations are being, because I'll admit, I read through some of them. Some of them are interesting. The woman who seems to be, she had like a pro-Russia blog that just came out of nowhere. And there's weird stuff in there, but it still should be addressed by the media if they're going to address other accusations.
I have a theory on this.
But the thing is, I think it ramps up some level of animosity against the guy. So you got a guy that people who are not, and then this is the last thing I'll show you guys. There is a tribe of voters out there who will definitely vote for Joe Biden. Now, it's a very unique individual group of people, but there is still this group of people out there. And I want to make sure I got this quote pulled up for you guys. This is, gotta admit, not super familiar with these individuals, but there is still I guess you would just say vote blue no matter who. But for the sake of argument, say Biden is a assaulter, Trump is also one, so why not vote for the one with the better policies? If that is not every American, I guess that's my only point. The reason why I think there is some, I don't know if Biden will make it forever. I do not believe that every single American in this country feels that way. That like, they're both like, I think there's people who are saying,
shameless partisans do.
But exactly. That's the minority of people. There's people out there like, there's candidates out there that are not assaulters, right? There's people out there that are not maybe criminals. Why don't we elect them? It's not just, because we have to vote for Joe. And I think there is this, we just have to we have to rally behind Joe camp. And they're not realizing that there's millions of people that aren't going to just rally behind Joe. I think someone in the DNC is noticing that as well. And I don't know. It's not like Joe Biden is this rock star candidate. People across the aisle are openly saying, does he have mental faculty problems?
Yeah.
He's 77. He's not even elected yet. He'd be inaugurated in 2021. Joe Biden would not actually be president until 2021. Think about that. Yeah. George, just for reference, Joe Biden is older than the atomic bomb. Think about that. When Joe Biden was born, it didn't exist.
Wow. Hey, so I got a question and a statement for you. First off, my statement is about the Ms. Reed situation. I actually think that this will come back to nip Joe Biden in the butt, because before November 4th, all of the coronavirus scare and the hump and the majority of the issue is going to be over with, and we're going to start talking about other things. And because that issue was never resolved, the media will begin to scrutinize it in a way that they didn't during coronavirus. So I actually think the Ms. Reed thing is going to come back to nip him in the butt. Okay. And when it does, I think it will do some pretty serious damage in the way that it did Alyssa Milano serious damage. Okay. And then the second thing is, if you don't think he's going to make it, who is?
That's what, that's
like, if you don't think he's going to make it, what do you think is going to go on?
I think there would just be it wouldn't be too dramatic. There would just be a replacement. Just Joe Biden would be like, hey, X happened. Maybe they would use the sexual assault as cover and be like, oh, but no, that's not cover. That's kind of a tough, it's kind of a painting you into a corner. Do you want to admit to having dementia or sexually assaulting someone? Like, I don't know. But I don't know. I can see Joe Biden just being like, I mean, like the last individual. I read through the story and basically he just made a statement and said, look, for health reasons, I'm going to step down. Like there's the problem though. There's kind of I don't know if it's a sunk cost fallacy sets here. There's the kind of like when you kind of lie to get into a position, you kind of feel obligated to keep up the lie. Like just being like, you know what? Sorry guys. Yeah, I'm spent. I don't know why I wasted all your time campaigning. Just pick someone else. Like, there's a sense of like, whoa, like you can't just like if Joe Biden did say, I got to be honest, like 7 months ago, I was like, woo, this will be tough, but I gave it a run anyway. And now that everyone's dropped out and I've raised millions of dollars in the elections and months, now I'm going to come clean and say I have mental issues, whatever they would be, and drop out. It would kind of be like, well, why'd you wait till now?
Yeah.
But it does seem like people are protecting him. I mean, I'm not gonna like impugn. I'm not gonna diagnose Joe Biden. I'm gonna say this: there's a lot of murmurings about this guy. He doesn't pass the eye test to me. Every time I look at him, he looks like an old guy who served in politics for a while, and maybe it's time to stop. Maybe it's time for him to go home now. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but it just keeps happening, man. It's not getting any better. And you would think with coronavirus, him being able to kind of shelter in place and just broadcast, that have even the broadcast interviews, like he looks like he doesn't know what he's talking about. And it's like, dude, you're in a controlled environment. You're in your house doing these, I'm assuming, on your own time. You don't even travel. You can roll out of bed, shower, do makeup, and you're in your living room. And he still isn't coming across like a lucid presidential candidate. He's still coming across as the guy at times who's like, well, you do the thing, check notes, so that's my answer.
And
like,
we need to send goods and services where they're needed most. Somebody's like handing him stuff and he's batting their hands down. He does look, for any of us that have gone through the heartbreaking experience of watching the elderly members of your family go through dementia and or Alzheimer's, he looks like that. I mean, he looks like both my grandfathers. My grandmother on one side and my grandfather on another both had dementia and Alzheimer's. And they're two different things, actually. One had dementia, one had Alzheimer's, right? And that's what Joe Biden looks like. Joe Biden looks like my grandfather when we would go visit him, and he wasn't bad enough to be stuck in the facility yet, but he wasn't good enough to remember me every time I showed up. Okay? And so he's, whether we like to admit it or not, I'm not here to say that an 80-year-old can't serve, because I think, wasn't Reagan? Didn't he hit his 80s towards the end there?
I think Reagan might be
a bad example because he actually
had.
had.
If you're talking about a guy that you're trying to defend from maybe having some declining faculties, and comparing him to Ronald Reagan, who famously did, I don't know. Maybe that's not a good look for Joe Biden.
Yeah. So maybe that's another imperfect analogy, right? But I'm not here to say that there's not an 80-year-old that couldn't serve. Okay, I don't want to make an ageist comment. I've known plenty of people that into their 80s and 90s, I swear, could have beat the tar out of me. Okay, physically and mentally. But I'm definitely here to say that I don't think that 80-year-old can serve. Okay, and that's what he's going to be. And anybody that has firsthand experience, we don't need to diagnose him from afar. We're not doctors. We just need to remember what our grandparents looked like when they went through this. And it's stressful and it's scary, and you become very irrational very quickly, and you act almost like a baby within a couple of years. Okay? And at a time like this, that's not what we need. We don't need that as the face of our president. And it casts a lot of doubt into the actual just plain old capability of the president. Forget ideology. It just casts doubt into the capability of the man. And so I think he's still going to be the nominee, man. I'm sorry. We keep talking. You and I did a video on this where we showed the statistics and the last time there was a contested convention. And for like the Democrats, it was like 1932 with FDR. Okay. And for the Republicans, it was like 75 years ago or something. It was something absurd. Okay.
Remember, it's only been 72 since for mental health concerns, a candidate did have to, or a vice president candidate had to resign post-convention.
Yeah, that's 48 years ago.
That's something. Hey, how many elections ago is it? 7 or 8, 9 elections, right? Think of it that way.
Something like that. Well, and it depends on if you count 2 or 4 year intervals. But anyway, it's within our parents' living history is what we could say. It's within our parents' adult lifetimes, okay, that many people remember this, okay, when George McGovern had to replace his VP. I also think, though, that back then there was much more stigma on mental health. If it got out that you were even seeing a therapist or a psychiatrist, you might get fired from your job. I mean, that was a legitimate concern and a reason why a lot of Vietnam War vets didn't seek help for their nightmares and for a lot of what we now commonly know as PTSD, which has now been actually called PTS. There's so much more tolerance for it now. And I shouldn't say tolerance. I should say understanding of the mental wounds that battle can carry, as well as the physical wounds. So much so that I think if it were to get out that, for example, Mike Pence, had gotten electroshock therapy in the 80s, back when people thought that worked for certain conditions in which it's proven not to work, we wouldn't worry about it so much.
I would say Mike Pence having electroshock therapy.
That would be the height of irony.
With his past, that would definitely lead me to some weird conclusions, I would say.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
dude, I'm batting really bad on these analogies today.
I wonder what they were trying to shock out of him, right? But but yeah, I mean, I guess there's not too much more to say. But the convention is being postponed to mid-August. That's when
Did
they
you just say I wonder what they're trying to shock out of it?
But with the convention being postponed, people calling for the convention to be canceled, confidence in Joe Biden seeming to be slipping across the board, both people on the right and left saying, what is going on with this Joe Biden guy? And him openly floating around the idea of, well, my VP, whoopsie, got my tabs over here. My VP needs to be ready to take over pretty soon because, I ain't going to make it.
Oh,
Here we go. Here's the quote. It says, the most important thing, and I've actually talked to Barack about this, the most important thing is that there has to be someone who the day after they're picked is prepared to be president of the United States of America if something happened. Yes. And there's a further quote I don't pulled up in this article where he goes on talking about the idea, well, I'm like 77, so hey, I'm probably only going to last one term. It's like, dude, if you're talking like that, your critics say you're crazy. You're like, oh, I'm an old man. Who knows what's going to happen? Just maybe someone else should be the nominee. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying they have to put Joe Biden in a hole.
Cody, like who?
That's the question. At this point, they paint themselves into a corner. Exactly. Who? I honestly
this is why I don't think it's going to happen.
I do believe
it's going to be Joe Biden because there's no other option.
I honestly believe Joe Biden was in the campaign this long just to outlast Bernie. I really believe that. I really believe now that Bernie's out of the way, they're working behind the scenes. So who's actually right?
Dark horse Andrew Yang will unsuspend his campaign.
Think about it though. It's not I'm saying solid strategy, but yeah, if you just wait long enough, everyone has to drop out for money reasons eventually. You just do.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not enough people donating money for you to run in 50 states. You're eventually going to run out of money if you don't win. So they knew eventually the day would come when only Joe Biden's left standing. And then what? Think about it. Maybe they'll have him nominate a VP and they'll just Kamala Harris. Maybe she'll be the nominee. Who knows? It's just weird to me. It's one of those things I cannot close my eyes and envision mid-November Joe Biden's name, or early November Joe Biden's name on a ballot as a Democratic nominee for president.
Interesting.
It's just, to me, dude, imagine a debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Imagine that.
Oh, we've all thought for a long time that Donald Trump would mop the floor with
because
him.
because no one thinks Joe Biden is mentally all there. That's why they think that. It's crazy to me that it's like
no, but also temperament. He's not.
But not even temperamentally. Temperament, maybe it would have been a mismatch. But people are like, keep Joe off the stage with Trump because it'll make him look bad. I don't know. There's nothing. I hope I'm not being offensive by saying a man who's almost 80 years old and has been serving in politics, doing stressful things, had multiple surgeries, had cancer, had a child die, might be in his older age kind of slowing down a bit. I hope it's not a crazy thing to say. Yeah. By the way, the death of his son didn't be one of the most traumatic things that happened to Joe Biden his entire life. It shaped the entire second or third act or whatever, the end of his life here. The notion that this guy who has had multiple he had multiple surgeries where he went under and they're like, you might not wake up. I mean, he's had serious stuff done to his body. I don't know. To say that all of that stuff might be adding up now is like crazy. I think it's worth mentioning.
And it's only fair that if we want to make legitimate criticisms of Donald Trump and demand saying, why aren't you releasing your medical records? There was that big talk and Donald Trump has released his medical records. Remember, that started becoming a thing towards the end of Barack Obama's presidency where people started demanding, hey, we want to see your tax records. Hey, we want to see medical records, and now the public is demanding to know a lot more of its leadership. If we're really demanding to know what the White House doctor is saying about the physical capabilities of Donald Trump, who seems, as Joe Rogan himself said, to be handling this just fine. He's like Bane, born in controversy. You merely adopted controversy. You know what I'm saying?
It does.
He seems to be handling the controversy and the stress of the limelight just fine. So if we're going to start demanding that of him, it just seems that the natural continuation is going to be what? Having White House doctors saying, he still sees 10 out of 12 numbers on the chart over there, but he only remembers 6 out of 12 flashcards. Is that what we're going to have? What an embarrassing thing. I mean, what the really cynical and anti-Reagan Congress people did to Reagan, and the last couple of those testimonies they forced him to give, ended up really being a shame on them, but it did show that his physical faculties were failing.
Well, I do want to mention this,
and that's not a graceful thing to put a president through. I mean, as much as I dislike Joe Biden, okay, I would never want to put the president of my people and my country through that. I would never want to put Barack Obama through that, nor Bill Clinton, because I just believe once a man is represented, he represents my people, and I don't want that for him. I don't want that for my people.
I do want to just mention again, not some of the things that's not super encouraging about Joe Biden. In December, they did release medical records that showed that while he had some conditions we've known about, that's not a big deal. He is overall healthy physically. However, the one thing I do want to note is that the report that was released in December did make absolutely no mentions of any kind of cognitive or mental function of the president. It's really interesting to me that people were well, no, it doesn't talk about anything about it. It just doesn't mention his mental. They just say he's, I guess, fine mentally. We didn't check. They avoided the question, basically, which is like, honestly, Joe Biden, 77, had multiple surgeries. I know that. I don't need to see I want to know about they haven't done them, as far as I know. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. I've looked around. I found they've released physical records as recently as December. Nothing on mental.
Okay, so here's my last question. I think it will be Joe Biden, and I don't think there will be a contested convention. I don't think there will be a dark horse candidate. I think, who knows, maybe it will be a virtual convention or whatever, but at this point, everything is on autopilot, and Joe Biden is the autopilot candidate. Okay. So you don't think he'll be there, but
I just can't see it.
You haven't come up with a who yet. So like before we end this podcast,
I don't know.
You got to give me something.
Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris.
The only reason why I say that, there had been speculation, honestly, since she dropped. That she dropped early to get on Biden's good side. She's recently started fundraising for Biden. She's at the top of the list. And I don't know, man. Biden himself is saying you have to be ready day one to take over for me. Maybe it's day minus 50. It's during the election she has to take over for him. But I don't know, man.
So you think Kamala Harris before Klobuchar?
Yeah. Oh, just today. If you ask me tomorrow, maybe it's Klobuchar tomorrow. I'm just telling you, it's just one of those things. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Maybe I'm just kind of like a crazy person, but there's some things I could just you say that this will happen, and I'll go, okay. Like I could see that happening. Like I could. I cannot see Joe Biden debating Donald Trump multiple times and then going head to head to him in a ballot on November 8th. I do not see.
Okay.
I mean, we're at the point now. Will there even be election day November 8th? Are we gonna have to push it back? Will it be like an election weeks that are done through mail? Who knows, right? But I do not see that happening. And I don't know how to explain it. It just feels so, everything I've seen tells me there's no way they're actually going to let Joe Biden represent the Democrats in 2020.
Interesting. All right.
If he looks old now, if he looked old last June, how is he going to look in 2021, 2022, 2023? Like, that just, it just, I can't imagine Joe Biden in 2024 what he's going to look like. Especially if he wins. Imagine Joe Biden being president for 4 years. You know, being president ages you like 3 times. Imagine 4 years in the White House for Biden. Going into his early 80s. It doesn't make it. It's like when they go to sign athletes to contracts. If a guy's 40 years old, he's not signing a 9-year deal. Like the notion that they're not signing 4-year deals with their 40
Not
years
everybody
old.
Can be Cal Ripken
At a
Jr.,
certain
right?
age. Well, at a certain age, you limit how long you have someone on because you're just like, dude, I don't know how long you're going to be around here for. Yeah. It's kind of messed up for someone to just, I don't know. It's getting to the point. Maybe Joe Biden will be physically, mentally 100% fine in his mid-80s on his second term. He doesn't seem to think that's the case. I don't think it's the case. I think if they want to run a real election here, Democrats are going to have to replace him. I do. I don't know. Okay. I just do not see a world in where a Joe Biden, because I'll end on this. While these people do exist, let me see if I can find this tweet again. While these people do exist, dude, these are not the majority of voters. Like you're not going to win an election with these voters. You're just not. This is a fringe minority of voters we're talking about. Biden might be crazy and just an awful person, but I like his policies better. Like, name a Biden policy.
That's true. Name a Biden
Public
policy.
options. The only one I know. Obamacare. He wants to expand Obamacare. Like, there really is not a ton of, I don't know. I'm rambling now, but that's my answer. I think today Kamala, tomorrow could be Amy Klobuchar. Who knows? I just can't see it being Biden.
All right. So anyway, let us know what you guys think of the comments below. Let's continue the conversation here. Give us your speculation. Give us your thoughts. Follow us on PSP Radio 1, and you can listen to us in the audio of this podcast on your favorite podcast platform. This is Problem Solver Politics. We'll see you guys in the next video.